This is a first for Sage Versus. A split. Although not the kind of split that I was hoping for. Not where one loves it and one absolutely hates it.
No.
More like one really likes it. One is...
Partial.
No, more, I think a little bit more like, that was a movie.
Really?
Yeah, I just...
Why so?
Well, we saw Captain America, Winter Soldier, and I went into this movie knowing that I would not like... I knew I wasn't going to like Captain America, the second movie, before as much as I did the first one, because one, it wasn't going to be like a 1940s pulp fantasy story. I mean, it was going to be set in the current day, first and foremost, so there goes that kind of appeal. And two, Hugo Weaving wasn't going to be in it. And
well, you know, I love Hugo Weaving in general, but you know, as soon as they put that Red Skull prosthetic on him, I lost all the Hugo Weaving for me.
I don't know, for me the Hugo Weaving shone through the prostheses. Maybe like, come on, like, it's like, unlike you, I embrace who I am.
You know, the first Captain America, the beginning was better than anything in this movie.
Yeah, like that was a perfect beginning.
Unfortunately, it was just the beginning.
Yeah, well, the strength of the beginning the strength of the first movie was the fact that Captain America was a character that did not need an arc. He just needed an outlet. He just needed an outlet to be the good person and the hero he was always meant to be, which is why Man of Steel, to me, didn't feel weak in that regard. Because it's that same kind of plot line. It's like a misfit would-be hero just doesn't have the means to be heroic, and they're given it to him. One, either by destiny for Man of Steel, and two, by, well, serum. But, so... Immediately, right out of the gate, the second movie just doesn't have that. It doesn't have... One, it does not nearly have a great villain like it did in...
No.
It did not have a great villain.
Not as good.
Not as good as a villain. And two, and most importantly for me, this continuing non-character arc for Steve Rogers, Captain America, while it does work, I mean, as far as, you know, it's Captain America, what do you want him to do? But you can't ride a movie series on that. I mean, this movie, because it doesn't really have that kind of, it doesn't have the setting, and it doesn't have as many memorable characters, and because it doesn't have that kind of, like, you know, breaking out of the mold, that kind of like, hey, we're changing it up kind of attitude the first movie had. It just kind of, well, it felt like Iron Man 2 to me. In fact, I'll go so far as to say that this movie has almost the exact same plot as Iron Man 3.
Really?
When you think about it.
I don't know if I'd say that. Remember, I liked Iron Man 3 more than the others.
Oof. Well, that's a debate for another day. But I'm saying it's the exact same plot line. Well, spoilers, by the way.
Yeah, it was all because of Ben Kingsley, though.
Well, yeah, Ben Kingsley.
Finally, Ben Kingsley is not the villain.
Finally, Ben Kingsley. He was just an accessory to the villain, but...
He sold that movie for me.
Well, yeah,
and Robert Downey Jr. dicking around is always fun.
Yeah, it's fun, but by the third movie, it gets tiring.
Sure it does. That's why I love Ben Kingsley.
Yeah. So, but the plot line where somebody in authority who uses his position to corrupt and influence a trusted organization so that they can withhold power to influence.
You're right. Structurally, it's
the same as Iron Man 3, and Captain America should not be Iron Man. It should not follow the same kind of plot line. The only saving grace that Iron Man has, as far as in comparison to Iron Man 3, Captain America rather has in Iron Man 3, was the fact with Bucky. And if any of you out there who knows your comic book lore, you know who the Winter Soldier is. So if I'm spoiling it for you, you're a bad nerd. The Winter Soldier is Bucky. For those of you who don't know, the guy who died off the train in the first movie, who didn't survive that. Well, he's back, and he's the Winter Soldier. And so there's finally a character moment for Steve Rogers. He has to confront the fact that he has to fight his former best friend. But this movie like I said, isn't interested in giving Steve Rogers much of a character. He's honorable. He's a good guy through and through. But that's just the extent of his character. There's no such thing as a crisis.
Yes.
There's no such thing as a There's no such thing as like a crisis of faith. As far
You
as
begin to think that there's going to be.
you think of it.
They start that up. It's implemented, but then he just says, "No,
It's like,
I'm a good soldier. I take orders." And
well, the idea. Well, he's on the dam, and he figures out it's Bucky,
Yeah.
and he has this moment where he wants to. He needs to stop him from killing basically 20 million people all over the world. Hydra's plan. By spoilers, yeah, Hydra's taken over Shield. But Steve is having this moment, and surprise turn of the movie. Falcon is in this movie. And good on the movie to kind of hide the cards about his identity. I mean, it's not like anyone's going like, "Oh shit, it's Falcon!" Like anyone who knows who Falcon is a huge Marvel nerd. But anyway, yeah, Falcon's in the movie, and for those of you who don't know, he's basically a black guy who has a jetpack and wings.
yeah.
But it's a
Well, you know what you were saying about Captain America's crisis of faith. He really the decisions he had to make, they weren't hard to make.
They weren't hard to make.
It was really written, just clearly the words are written on the wall for what had to be done.
And
there was really no question about what had to be done.
yeah, exactly. And there's this clear cut there's you have to do this. You have to face against Bucky, and it was kind of summed up in a line. It's like, I have to save him, and then Falcon just comes out like, men like him don't need to be saved, they need to be stopped. And that was pretty much as far as it goes, as far as that kind of crisis. Like, he will stop him, but he won't kill him. And that used to be I found that kind of charming as far as Captain America.
Yeah.
He was a soldier, and he would not shy away from killing a man in combat, because that's what soldiers do. I mean, he doesn't like doing it, but he'll do it. Just like any if you ask any police officer, he's like, I'll shoot to kill. I don't like doing it, but I'll do it.
I think the number of times that Captain America's, being stalwart has been checked, kind of. Mm-hmm. You saw it in Avengers. You see it it happens a lot. Not to a very extreme degree, but it's a constant thing, and it that wears at someone. And I think by the end of it, while he wouldn't go against his morals or what makes him Captain America, he still was like, at this point, I'm not going to kill him.
There was this one moment earlier in the film when he's talking with Nick Fury, and he looks at this huge fleet of flying platforms, like in Avengers, in the first Avengers, and he finds out that they're these automated. They're basically huge, gigantic, unmanned drones. And that's where my second, other big problem with this movie comes
giant
in.
area craft.
Yeah, giant aircraft carriers that are basically giant drones. So, I'll get into that later. But he's talking with them about, what is this? You're just going to target random people and say, we got to stop terrorism before it starts. And he comes back from that conversation, and he's talking with, I think, one of his neighbors, no, he's talking with Falcon. He was talking with Falcon, and he says, I have I wanted to do the right thing, but that's becoming very difficult.
Yeah.
And there's so many moments like that where it would be like, what is the right thing in this world? This more complicated world than, let's say, the Roaring 40s, or at least a idealized version of the 40s, but with a Nazi mad science division. Yeah. But there's these moments that I wish that the movie would delve into deeper. We don't need to have this whole Batman-esque kind of character delving into, but just these moments that lets people know that Captain America and Steve Rogers, I'm talking to Steve Rogers, not Captain America, Steve Rogers may be Captain America, but he's also a guy.
He is also Steve Rogers.
He's also Steve Rogers. Too much Captain America, not enough Steve Rogers.
Yeah.
And it could work for a movie like it did for the first Captain America, but if you're going to make it into a series, like with with Winter Soldier, there has to be something more.
There is a degradation of
yeah,
the
like
character, yes.
there's not just the degradation of the character, but there's like a diminishing law of return. It's like it's the same thing, just in the modern day, and no longer having all the charms that it used to have. So right off the bat, this movie had to win me over, and I don't think it entirely did. If you want my review of this movie summed up in a sentence, it's basically good enough is good enough, but I wish there was more.
Yeah. For me,
Yeah.
I already knew I was going to like this movie more than the first because I'm biased. And I am going to admit that, hi, my name is Gabriel Herzig and I have a problem. I am a Scarlett Johansson's assaholic. And I know it's a problem and I'm a little ashamed of it, but especially pulling that feminist card again that I always do. I do have the male gaze.
It's fine. It's fine. All right. There is no shame in liking the female form.
No, there isn't. This is a talk that we've had plenty of times.
This poor motherfucker here. He wasn't able to see the leaked nude pics way back when.
No,
before like every website was.
I felt bad. I guess I felt bad about that, but then I said, you know what? I don't want to know. I always want to be. I always want to keep guessing. You know.
You're like a little kid at Disneyland.
Yeah.
You see Mickey Mouse and you want to believe that's Mickey Mouse, but you don't want to take the head off and realize it's Pedro underneath.
I don't need that reveal.
But I will
I'm
say this.
perfectly happy being let along.
I will say this. They were magnificent. Like two eggs and a hanky.
Like two Prinkles hugging each other.
Mm-hmm. Like two teardrops down a crying child.
Yes. I do agree that there is a certain amount of objectification, like in the Avengers movie, the male gaze, yes, staring at her ass, and you know what? I like it. I like it. I have no problem with it. I do consider myself pretty much a feminist, but
pretty much.
You see, this is why pretty much though, because that ass.
There's many schools of thought as far as feminist theory is concerned, and you're not a bad feminist for liking the sight of female butts, especially butts as shapely as Scarlett Johansson's. It's when you only reduce her to her butt is when things get into problems. And
that's where this part comes in, which is what I'm going to say about the acting.
She was great in this movie.
I had some problems.
You had some problems with her role in the movie, or like her performance?
This is where I'm getting a little bit... this is where I'm conflicted.
Mm-hmm.
Because on one hand, she's playing Black Widow. Scarlett Johansson's playing Black Widow, which is a person who I imagine is very desensitized. She's kind of emotionally detached because she has to be for her job. So in one respect, she's doing a great job of that. In kind of in a Terminator kind of way, I guess. But in another regard, she's I don't know. I felt like she should be a little bit more charismatic. Maybe.
Well, first off, she's
feel free to chime
yeah,
in,
like she's like the supporting character of Captain America.
I didn't feel like she was as into this as she was in Avengers. This movie.
I think she had more to do in Avengers. Well, it's not like she didn't have anything to do in this movie.
No,
but like
she had enough to do in this movie. Compared to Iron Man.
Compared to Iron Man 2, but
in Iron Man, she was definitely much more of an eye candy.
Well, she was
character than she was in this.
Well, she was eye candy there, but she was also meant to lead on into much a much bigger universe.
Yes.
And in Avengers she had much more to do because she had a character that if there was any character in the Marvel universe, or at least the movie Marvel universe, that Black Widow was able to latch onto is Hawkeye. But Hawkeye wasn't here.
No.
But Hawkeye wasn't here, so there's not those little moments where dressing Hawkeye's wounds and do you know what it's like to have yourself pulled out and replaced? And she says, I do. So you have that sense of history.
Oh yes, I remember things differently. Yeah.
You have the sense of characterization that was there, but to go from Avengers to here in Winter Soldier.
Yeah, there was no chemistry between Captain America and her because there wasn't supposed to be.
No, it's not.
It wasn't supposed to be. It's not like every time you have a Well, actually, that is that is the theme for most movies, is that when you have a supporting actress with a main actor, you tend to have a romance. It's almost inevitable in most movies. I'm glad they didn't do that, because that would be incorrect.
Yeah, it would be incorrect, and I don't think. And as far as my albeit limited knowledge of Marvelverse.
Well, your limited knowledge of Marvel is still better than my knowledge of Marvel, though.
Basically, it's like over the course of who Black Widow has hooked up over the years, she's more likely to go after Tony Stark. So, although she has slept with a number of Marvel heroes, I mean, like, let's face it: if you were a woman who looked like Scarlett Johansson and you had the ability to tap that ass with the likes of Tony Stark, wouldn't you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, this conversation has veered way off course. I guess we should finally get to like the actual plot itself. It starts off with, actually, now that I really think about like how it starts and how it ends, it's really hard to
this time.
It's hard to really make the connection between like the beginning boat scene where they find out that some French militia leaders have taken over.
Going to the very beginning, I guess that's the running scene.
Yeah.
On your left.
Oh yeah.
On your left.
The scene opens with Captain America lapping Falcon. I almost called him Hawkeye.
Hot guy.
Like lapping Falcon, and of course you don't know he's Falcon by then. You think he's just some random like veteran. And so they introduce each other, and I forget who plays Falcon, but I liked him. I really did. I mean, he didn't have much to do. He didn't have much to do, but I liked him.
But he was kind of an endearing character, I guess.
Yeah, like you see that. His side of what he brings to the story, and I wish they delved into deeper. Another moment where I wish they kind of explored a little bit more is veteran affairs.
Right.
He leads a wounded vets program, talking about like what they experienced in battle and what what do they keep with them and what did they leave first where they were at the battlefront. And I wish they kind of had like that little moment that like a soldier from like World War II talking to a soldier from now versus.
Yes, they could have done that better.
Yeah, they could have. Yeah, it would have. It would kind of fit into Steve Rogers trying to fit into this era. Like he keeps,
and it could have done some of that character shaping for Steven.
For Steven and for Falcon too.
Yeah.
But again, Falcon kind of plays the side. What's the word I'm looking for? He
really is a sidekick in this.
He is a sidekick in this movie, plain and simple. But
I mean, he even has comments throughout the movie where he's like, "Yeah, I know him." I mean, he doesn't say that, but he knows he's a sidekick. Yeah, I do what he does. He says.
Basically, like,
don't look at me. I do what he does, just slower.
Yeah, don't look at me. Don't look at me. I do what he does, only slower.
He has no delusions of who he is, what he does.
Like I imagine, like we think of each other as each other's sidekicks every once in a while.
Oh, don't get into that. Don't get into that.
But no, this guy is fully self-aware.
I mean, what does it say on our frickin' videos? It says, assist Gabe. It's not Gabe, assist Bennett. It's... You want to talk sidekicks.
Calm down, my ward.
Sidekick you in the fucking ribs.
Calm down, my ward.
Yeah. Squire. Ward. Yeah.
But
shove off.
The actual action starts with S.H.I.E.L.D. basically taking care of a terrorist situation on one of their carriers. But for some reason, Black Widow has to steal something off a hard disk on the freight carrier, and then gives it to Nick Fury, who can't decode it. And because he can't decode it, he realizes, oh, something's up. S.H.I.E.L.D. must be something must be up with S.H.I.E.L.D. And basically he becomes a target. And he finally contacts Steve Rogers and saying, like, listen, S.H.I.E.L.D. has been compromised. Try to find out what's on this USB. And he gets assassinated by the Winter Soldier, by Bucky. And so this kind of, like, figuring out what's on the USB turns out to be was it? No, it wasn't that. It was. Jesus, this was a dense plot.
I will agree with you on that.
That was a dense
There
plot.
honestly were some boring moments in this
Yeah. It turns out that the USB is just like blueprints towards those carriers I mentioned, those gigantic
self-maintaining, propelling. They're supposed to be able to keep going.
No, like they were like man on it, but they were basically the analogous of drones. They were just drones, and it turns out that they were going to turn their drones into targeting people who would not fit Hydra's view of the future. Like,
that's where I just kind of went.
Okay.
What's the significance of this? And I don't think they even really expanded on it that much.
Well, they said that they could
predict what
a person's
life was going to be like
by test scores
based
and
on all of their background information, which is where we lead into the little side arc of will Black Widow actually reveal Hydra's true nature
and Shield's
if she has to give up if she has to reveal her own background,
yeah. And so. Okay, and this is where like the plot just kind of smacked me in the face and realized that this was certainly not like Captain America. Mm-hmm. I think I'm not alone in saying this. I am sick to death of these action movies trying to be more than what they are.
Yes.
Captain America was a simple, fun pulp story.
It didn't need some of those.
It did not need to hey, drone warfare is bad, and the keeping secrets for the public is bad too. Didn't you already see a movie like this called RoboCop? Yeah, RoboCop was. Although RoboCop was way worse than this movie.
Oh,
way worse. Yeah. But it suffers from the same problems that RoboCop has in that regard. I mean, I like to think that. They looked at RoboCop like maybe like a few months before release, and they kind of, they did one of these like, oh no, we did the same thing. We'll be all right, right? Man, I mean, I was kind of on board, kind of jiving with the movie. Like, I was forgiving the fact that it was not going to be like the first movie. It's like, okay, you can't, they closed that door. Let's see what window they open. Oh, you open the window where some window painter farted through. Close it.
It wasn't that bad.
Well, not that bad, of course, but that was a window that needed to be closed.
Yeah.
This was a movie that needed to be fun.
It lost lots of pinball shields, which it had, but not enough.
Yeah,
it needed to be just more of that.
It needed to be more fun, and it wasn't. It wasn't fun, but hold on. Was it at the start of this review? Didn't you say that you liked this movie more than I did?
I did.
Sounds like I don't know. Is it like
Scarlett Johansson? I already explained.
I didn't know like Scarlett Johansson's ass was going to be all that encompassing.
It's not just that. I also just like the character. And I actually really enjoy seeing, the only female Avenger get her spotlight now and then, because you know how much I wanted that movie. I want a Black Widow movie. I really want a Black Widow movie, and not just because of not just because she has eye candy, not because it's Scarlett Johansson. It's because I really want to see a female superhero movie. Just fucking one. I know we've had some bad ones like Elektra and Catwoman. I know that it was one bad after the other, but it was only 2 movies, man. I mean, come on, give woman another fucking chance. This is ridiculous. And honestly, if I could if I could have any superhero in movie, Wonder Woman, any, I would choose Black Widow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty fair to assume. I mean, that's fair to say, or rather, that's fair to say.
So even though the movie I probably would have liked the first Captain America more than this if it didn't have Scarlett Johansson playing Black Widow in it, or anyone else for that matter.
But with that, all right. So you're saying that without the Scarlett Johansson bump, as far as you're concerned, this was not as good a movie.
No. Unfortunately, no.
So, okay, so you are kind of on the same side as me, just you kind of can't say no.
I already said I'm
I'm just trying to clarify that for myself more than anyone.
Yeah.
But
yes, you can feel you can feel justified in your
one of the weirder turns of this movie was the fact that remember that scientist that kind of lived at the end of the Captain America? Yeah, he returned sort of as as a digital representation of himself.
Yes.
His brain has been saved on 8
a
miles.
very feminine representation of himself.
Yeah, he's basically matrixing. You kind of see his face in like green lines of code, and his brain has basically been saved on what was it, 8 miles of memory tape?
Yeah, and Black Widow's like, "Oh, would you like to play a game or whatever that line is?"
Oh yeah, in war games when they finally find the source of they finally find the source of the information on the USB. It turns out it's basically instructions to kill everyone that doesn't suit Hydra's version of the future. And they take it to the one place where it could be decoded, and it just happened to be the old military base in New Jersey for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
Why the fuck was he there? Like, was that military base in New Jersey? I guess you know what it was. I think it was when they looked at Iron Man 3 and they realized, wait a minute, we have Tony Stark drive from Tennessee to Florida in less than 12 hours. So they realized, okay, so if it's around DC, we can't, realistically, we can't move away from here. So why don't we just, Fort Dix, New Jersey. Yeah. Okay, all right. So
that happened.
That happened, and from there, it just kind of takes the inevitable route. Yeah. The Falcon joins the party.
Yes, roster up.
Yeah. And recruited. And they've saved the day.
You unlocked Falcon.
I mean, for a plot this dense, but ultimately simple, it tried to be more than what it ostensibly was.
Yeah, it left you thinking, oh, okay, so you're trying to connect the dots. Okay, sure. And then it leads you all the way back to the start, and you're like, well, what was all that convolution for?
Exactly. It wanted to be fun.
Yeah.
I mean, you get...
And it was fun. The action scenes they had were fun.
Well, when you could follow them. I mean, it did suffer from shaky cam, especially during the hand-to-hand fight scenes.
It is true.
That was... The fight scenes in the first Captain America, which were much better directed, they kept the camera back. They didn't try to follow each punch with, camera whipping through and forward. Yeah. The boat scene was the worst. The first fight scene on the boat, that was just unfollowable.
Yeah.
That was worse than Jason Bourne. And that was worse than the Bourne movies. And I just wish, they would just pull the camera back, let the actors do their choreography. Yes. Let us take it in. Don't try to make it frantic. Don't try to make it kinetic, because otherwise you're just not being able to follow anything, and it takes you out of the action.
Yeah. And
that was... one of the technical flaws of this movie, one of the only technical flaws. The other technical flaw was in a character moment that I think I'm glad they put it in, but Captain America goes to find his old flame from the first movie, and she's basically now 90 years old. And it's the same actress, except they CG'd old face on her.
Yeah.
And it doesn't quite work.
Yeah, she's got kind of bug eyes going on.
Like her eyes are young. It doesn't match the rest of her face, and the lips are a little off. Mm-hmm. But the worst part, it was better than it was in the old man makeup on Prometheus, in Prometheus.
It wasn't terrible CG, but it was noticeable.
It was very noticeable, which is way worse. When you took Chris Evans' face and put him on his little tiny body, and it worked for the most part. Why couldn't you do that? Couldn't you do it for the old woman? It was way worse. You could do so much better than this.
Well, wrinkles. I don't know.
Well,
how hard that is to CG. in motion with someone's face. I don't know.
I know, but here's my problem
Perhaps
with
it's difficult.
here's my problem with making making an actor look older than they are. We had that technique perfected.
Oh yes,
in
in actual
60s.
makeup.
It's in actual in the 70s.
So it's just lazy to CG when you could spend the time and effort to.
Well, it's not really. It's not even lazy because I think it takes more man hours to do it. But I mean, altogether, it takes more man hours
That's
to
true.
animate a
Possibly.
human face with that kind of with wrinkles.
I wouldn't know really how much more difficult or easy
Well,
it would
like
be.
it would be like when you read about like Dustin Hoffman and his old man makeup in Little Big Man, which remains to be like the best use of old man makeup I've ever seen in film. Like when I was watching the movie with him, I had to tell him that's Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah.
And well,
Yeah.
it was when you see that, knowing that was almost like at least 40 years old. That was 40 years since they made that movie. 40 years. And to come to this point where it's like that's the actress in old woman makeup. No, old woman special effects. You know what it was? It was also her eyes didn't have that correct amount of like cataracts. Didn't have.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know. One looked a little bigger than the other.
Yeah. And the mouth didn't quite work right, and her voice was too young.
Yeah.
She just talked like this.
Yeah, she should have screamed for 10 hours like Dustin Hoffman.
Like
did.
Dustin Hoffman, to prepare his old man voice, what he did was he screamed for an hour. So, so he can talk with a correct amount of old man creak.
Yes, everybody should damage their voice box to do that. Everybody should.
I mean, Dustin Hoffman set the bar. Everyone else is trying to knock it off from its perch, and no one has for 40 years.
But getting back on track.
But getting back on track.
The thing that worries me most is starting to CG emotion into actors' faces. Like, particularly, I'm wondering how many teardrops nowadays are actually CG'd.
Well,
it worries me a little bit.
They don't
put
need
it past them.
They don't need to CG teardrops. I can tell you that much.
Oh yeah, you can get an eye dropper.
Well, like unless the camera was focusing on a tear where they need the tear to show up more in the frame than
coming out of the water line. Yeah, it's. We could do like that Boston Legal episode where William Shatner. Did you ever see that?
No, I haven't.
There's this episode where William Shatner's got his character gets a tubing taped onto his face and makeup over it, and it goes all the way up into his tear duct. And he did all this so that he could cry while he gives a speech to a woman he's wooing. And so he has the little thing in his pocket, he squeezes it when he's right at the end of his conversation and starts, tears start dropping, and then it starts squirting. Yeah, but anyway, that's kind of how I imagine it.
Well, what part of the movie had you thinking about that? I must ask.
I wasn't thinking about that during the movie.
So what are you on about?
Well, we were talking about the CGing of. I kind of went on a tangent there, but
it's like I'm trying to think back to that movie. Like, was there a point where somebody?
No.
CG.
I think I built my own mountain on this one.
Yeah. And you're alone there, my friend.
Oh well, thank you for the support.
Well, yeah, you're trying to lead me down some path that I don't know.
Oh, this happens. This happens.
And I think
I'm not the only one.
I know. I think really that's really as much as I really want to say about Captain America is just I went in with not the best expectations. They weren't met, much to my dismay. It wasn't a bad movie. It was a good enough kind of movie. And as much as we are loath to admit it, I talked about this on Toolshed. With Mark. Sometimes good enough is good enough, even though you do wish it was more. And that was certainly my reaction to this movie. What about you?
That was my reaction, plus Scarlett Johansson.
Well, Scarlett Johansson brings it up. And it got to the point where, before the movie, I told Gabe that they have these movies, Marvel Studios has these movies planned to about 2028.
Oh, yeah, that's frightening just to think about.
And we're looking at like a steady track of like diminishing returns as far as these movies are concerned. It's not like they're like a real dip in quality. It's just like the audience reaction to these movies, and especially your own personal reactions to these movies, are on a steady decline. And I can't imagine what the movies are going to be like in 2028. I think people are going to be seeing them out of obligation more than excitement, really.
I mean, we're going to have new actors cast by then, probably, in most of the roles, I guess. I mean, unless you're talking like, Hugh Jackman's gone a long time as Wolverine. I think they're finally deciding to replace him. He still looks pretty good, so I don't think they need
He probably has one or two more Wolverine movies in him. But
yeah, you're right. Steady decline, maybe. Let's see Avengers 2.
Age of Ultron, and
see how that goes before we really make that judgment, I guess. But
and
you're probably right, though.
And we've been over this again.
It's inevitable.
We've been over this again. That the reason why we're looking forward to, the reason why we've been looking forward to Guardians of the Galaxy is that it's just new.
Yes, it's new material, new characters. It's just
new, and it's in a setting that's not, for the love of God, not somewhere in the city. Meanwhile, in Townsville.
Yeah.
This is just... I don't know, like... This doesn't make me worried for Guardians of the Galaxy, but it does kind of make me wonder, like, are my attitudes of Guardians of the Galaxy going to be diminished if they make a 2 or a 3?
Let's not think about that. Let's not cross that bridge yet.
Yeah.
Let's just look forward to...
I'm just saying, at the current trend of Marvel movies, they're just...
There probably will be, but let's just enjoy the first one.
Yeah.
Just look forward to it and enjoy it when it comes out, Because, I mean, come on, what have we learned from this experience of movie watching?
You should just let the movie affect you.
Yeah.
Then come home and bitch about it in front of a camera for the internet, in case if it's a Tyler Perry movie or if it's a young adult novel adaptation. Oh, and by the way, the Marvel... If you were wondering, the Marvel after scene showed Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch.
Oh, that's gonna start getting confusing. Scarlett Johansson, Scarlet Witch.
And you're gonna have to keep it. Just say like Witch and Quicksilver.
Yeah.
So, and apparently they're in the hands of Hydra. So once we spoiled everything,
finally be a really interesting Hydra plot, maybe. Oh yeah,
wait.
Black Widow movie. Make it happen.
Till next time.